Welcome to EdUp Curriculum. I am your host, Nicole Poff, and I'm excited about today because this is a topic that I've intentionally stayed away from until I felt like I had someone worth talking about it. And so I was really excited when I stumbled upon today's guest, William Donoher. We are going to talk about AI today, and we've sprinkled this into the conversations little bits here and there. It's kind of a hard topic to not talk about. But we haven't really exclusively covered it yet until today. And so I am excited. William, thank you so much for being here. Before we begin, can you introduce yourself, share anything you want the audience to know about you?
Sure. Thank you for having me, Nicole. I'm glad to talk with you and your listeners. I came about this somewhat circuitously. I actually started out as a lawyer in commercial finance practice. Um, Decided fairly early in my career that wasn't the best choice for me as an individual. Um, and I had been a business undergrad, and so I went back to school, earned my PhD in business, specifically in management, strategic management, and then have been following an academic career for over 20 years, culminating as a business school dean. And at that point, I had become old enough that the rigors of administration were no longer as rewarding to me as they had been, but I also felt that I could still contribute something somewhere, and so I went into semi-retirement basically, and chose to start up a consulting and broad-based business to continue both on an educational path, and we'll be talking about that specifically a little later, but also then be in position to contribute to educational institutions and businesses and put some of my knowledge and experience to use directly and support especially both businesses and higher ed in achieving their goals and objectives and helping people develop.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Thank you for being here. And I know that there's a lot. I know that that's a hard, weird question because there's a lot to you. Um, But what we're going to talk about, I'm really excited about because I think your take is a little bit different. You know, when you and I hopped on the phone, you kind of started talking about AI, and I thought, oh, great, here we go again, another AI person. Because again, it's kind of hard to get away from, right? And what I kind of am now hearing is like we want to go to conferences and not hear about AI as much because there's just so much AI talk. But where I really struggle is it feels like there's a lot of policies around the prevention of AI. Um, and B, there's a lot of talk about using AI without a lot of solutions of how we can actually use it, right? So there's policies coming into play. We should use it, but that's kind of where it stops. And what I loved about our conversation is you had some very concrete ways in which we can make AI work for the students rather than just like around them or against them. So, what do you think? Let's just start off very general. What do you think is the most important shift higher education needs to make in embracing AI from a student centered perspective?
Yeah, I think, and this is kind of the other side of the story for me and my path, because as part of what I'm doing now, I had also bought a bar exam preparation business, and this is where we're actually deploying our AI tools in support of student success. And I think that's really, I think the mindset from an educational perspective that we need to adopt and kind of keep in the back of our mind, that what we're trying to do here is to set our students up for success. Now, my experience in traditional education came at it exactly from the perspective you suggested in the opening of your question, which was that essentially it was a policy issue, usually directed at how to prevent students from misusing AI. And clearly that's appropriate, that is necessary, that is part of the, I think, significant challenge that AI poses in education. So I think what we need to kind of do, and this is really what we've been working on the bar exam side. How can we, instead of using this as a or viewing this as a threat solely, how can we use this in a positive manner that helps students achieve success? Now, in this particular business, the bar exam business, what we're trying to do is to help highly intelligent, highly motivated people achieve success with the bar exam. Um, Having been there myself, I can tell you that it is a massive amount of material, as you can imagine. It is clearly the scenario of drinking from a fire hose. And I think students have a tendency, I went through this myself, and I think there's always a tendency to kind of just look at this massive material and how do I tackle this? How do I survive this experience and get anything out of it? How can I actually get a handle on all of this material? So what we did was to try to flip the equation a little bit, turn it on its head, and look at it more from the perspective of how can we use this tool to point students to areas they need help in and then work out from there, rather than say, here's all this stuff, learn it and memorize it. Let's focus on what you actually need to learn. And realistically, you already know a good bit of this stuff. You went through law school. So if we start from the perspective you have a base and a foundation of knowledge, now let's focus on what you're struggling with. This is then how we can help students succeed better, I think, by pointing them to actual methodologies that get at their weak points and help them learn, rather than trying to just randomly absorb all of this material, some of which they already know. And that approach also risks then maybe missing some of these areas where actually they're not strong enough to get by. So let's focus them on how to learn what they need to learn, and kind of go at it from that perspective.
I love this. I've spent a lot of time at healthcare colleges, and especially when there's board exams, we spend a lot of times figuring out how to build remediation plans, right? For students who are deficient in some areas, we figure out what is the plan. And historically, that's always been a pretty manual process, right? And maybe similar in the law field, right? We figure out where sometimes they take like a predictor exam, let's say. They'll take a predictor exam, it'll tell us they've passed in these areas, they didn't pass in these areas, and then manually the instructor, piece of paper, computer, writes out what the remediation plan will be to help the student get back on track in those areas of deficiency. But I love this for two reasons. A, we're assuming that those couple questions, like you said, that the student got right is enough to pass that area, right? They've passed maybe 3 or 5 classes or questions, and we're like, okay, yeah, they're good there. When maybe AI could detect a little bit more of, we're assuming they're good here, but actually they're not. But B, really reduce that load of figuring out where they're weak in providing this very beautiful, kind of the way that I'm seeing it, you're positioning it as like an individualized education plan, like very customized to what the student actually needs. How does how do you like how does the AI establish um, what the student needs?
Yeah, we're actually doing a couple basic steps in this process, and we have essentially two different services that are provided that the students then can make use of. Um, the simpler one is essentially taking the idea of the chat bot and applying it in a more specific environment. So what we have done is to set up tutor bots basically for specific topics. So if a student is already struggling, they know that they're not quite getting civil procedure or criminal law or whatever. We set them up with the tutor bot in that area, and they can ask any question in the world and as many times as they want to get at the essence of their questions and their areas of weakness in that particular field. So that's the sort of, I guess, the direct approach, and again, the student-driven approach, especially because this is available 24/7. If they wake up at 3 in the morning and have a burning question, they can plug in and get that answered. And what we've found so far is that the AI is responding very clearly and very accurately and very quickly. It is referencing our library of material to do this, so it isn't out hunting for who knows what, who knows where, and delivering the first answer that it comes up with. So that's, I think, one of the key factors to keep in mind in using this type of approach. So we know what's in there, we know the student's getting good information, and then it is endlessly flexible and endlessly available and also endlessly patient when it comes right down to it. The other approach then that we're taking, and this gets really at the heart of your question, we have a separate system in which the student is able to set up their own study plan in the AI, basically doing some mind mapping to address a particular topic area. They can then submit work. We will prompt them with essay questions and other types of exercises for the student to complete. They can upload that. The AI then will assimilate that information and then feed back to the student a pretty good critique of where they're strong and where they need some help yet to improve performance. And we do this actually on a couple different levels, apart from just the information content. The delivery is also achieved by using avatars to speak to the student. And what we have found in watching students use this tool, we think that we see an improvement in engagement in particular. It again is not something they're just getting a written report about. And then they sit there and slog through it and read it and so forth. This allows them to hear it, so we're picking up, in this sense, maybe different learning styles, or at least presenting them with a different learning environment. But they are seeing someone, they are listening to someone speak to them conversationally, and then deliver both good and bad news, if you will, about how they're performing. And so it gets to the content, it provides the information that the student needs to hear what they need to work on. But I think really on this side, the key is that delivery is very engaging and keeps the student involved in the process in a way that they might not be quite as involved in a more traditional delivery mechanism.
Absolutely. And I have a question about how students are responding, but I want to comment first because during COVID, I helped a couple of law schools. They had to pick up their on ground classes and move them online. And there was a lot of complexity with that because there's mock trials, and they're like, how do we produce the same? And maybe it's more sophisticated now because that was 5 years ago. But back in 2020, we really kind of wrestled with how do we create the same mock trial environment that we would on ground in an online setting. There was also things like um, professors wanted their students to use law libraries. They were very specific. They must go to a law library. Well, during COVID, how many things shut down and that we didn't have access to. And so it really, in my opinion, kind of helped showcase the way in which law education is maybe a little bit behind the times, and maybe that's a little bit critical of me. But I really felt like, whoa, this feels old. Like the fact that your students have to go to an actual law library. And, what if it's 200 miles from their house? You expect them to drive 200 miles, go to a law library. Where I'm going with this is there other areas of law education besides bar prep that AI might help get us to 2025 with?
I think basically you could certainly use these tools in lieu of the traditional law outline format. Even I hate to date myself, but it's been a few years since I was a law student. As I said, this was at the very beginning of my career, so it's been a while. But even then, and I still hear the same thing since, students want to take again this mound of material that you're presented with in law school and assimilate it in a way that makes sense. And so there have long been these outlines that are published, they're book length outlines of different topics to help students understand how to integrate the material and provide a structural overview of that material. The problem that I think law faculties were dealing with even then was that, well, gee, we're not always maybe comfortable with that particular style or approach or the content focus, whatever the case may be. So, what I think could be done real easily with these tools would be to take a body of material that, again, can be reduced to some digital format and load it into AI and allow students to use basically an approved version of that particular material. I think, again, it could be used in a way that accomplishes both the educational objective and the student's needs in a way that both sides can win with, rather than having faculty worried about what particular law outlines are actually telling the students about. And worrying whether that's accurate or whether it fits their individual delivery approach. We could see, again, a more content focused, individual instructor focused set of materials that could be made available to the students to, again, both engage and, at the very least, organize themselves in a way that allowed them to learn the material more effectively.
That's perfect. And I think I could be wrong here, but I feel like, especially with law education, there's like people, there's this, I don't know, part of law school is being buried in a mound of textbooks in the library till all hours of the night, right? That is when we think of law school and we see people studying and we talk to our friends, they're in the library all the time sorting through books and material and things like that. And so it almost feels like there's this like resistance against, we can't lose that. It feels like a treasured space of law education. But the students are going to go to AI anyways. Like it feels like we're fighting something that's inevitable. And what you're proposing, and this is a really terrible analogy, is like they're going to do the drugs anyways. So let's provide a safe space for them, right? Like, you know, in a lot of, if you're driving across country, a lot of gas stations have again, this is a terrible analogy, but they have those boxes where you can drop needles, right? Because they're like, we're not going to stop people from using drugs, but at least we can make a safe condition where they can dispose of their needles without judgment and without spreading it. It feels like that's kind of what you're proposing is they're going to do it anyways. They are going to use it. So whether they're going to use ChatGPT, which is probably going to be false information, or we can provide a safe space for them to live within this environment.
And I think that's essentially the issue here. I'd like to think it is a little more of a positive
Than drugs.
system than the drug example. Yes, but still, I think that is kind of spot on in its form and structure. That and this is certainly what I was seeing in my own administrative career, helping faculty deal with this issue fairly regularly, that students are misusing. And the sense I had was that they're misusing because they simply don't understand what else it can do. And we're not helping them do that or see that. So I think one thing that is going to be important going forward then is retraining the students to view this as an opportunity to actually learn effectively rather than to cheat.
Yep.
Now, is cheating going to continue? Unfortunately, yeah. That's just product, I think, of human nature and the times in which we live. But if we can reorient the students to see this more as a tool that can help them actually learn effectively and maybe quickly, hopefully maybe we cut back on the misuse, at least at the margin, because students aren't thinking of it in those terms anymore. And they don't see it as just a shortcut to get by a particular class or a particular exam or a particular project. So if we open that door, and then if we also are doing so in a way that allows us to control that environment, then I think we have at least an opportunity to make use of an emerging technology effectively and for a positive end.
Absolutely. Now, we talked about bar prep and avatars and chatbots, but there's literally like a vast amount of opportunities for AI. What other ways do you think AI could be used to support students that institutions might not even be thinking about yet, might not even be on their radar?
I think it's literally the field is open, and I think that's the good news. Now that's also the challenge, because how do we think about this and you put this to use in a way that makes sense both for the institution and for the student? But it could be anything in the realm of even support services at the institutional level, For example, I was talking to someone not long ago, and they raised the issue that there's a lot of still arcane nomenclature running around in academia, such as the bursar's office. How many students, especially freshmen coming in, are going to know what the bursar's office
Yep.
is and what it does and why they might want to, be aware of it? So you could literally set up a system in which students have access to a tour guide of the university, basically, for example. And they could ask questions of it, or it could simply present and do a virtual tour that way of key offices that they need to be engaged with. This could be done for potentially, visiting students as one more tool to present the university's experience and the university's programs through. So it could be used in as I see it, any support function of that sort. To present information and or to allow students to engage and ask questions. And then certainly in terms of content, this is not something that is limited to law use. Uh, I think virtually any subject matter, any level of instruction, really, for that matter, not even necessarily higher ed. I think K through 12 could make use of this as well. I think any subject matter could be adapted and into this type of system effectively. What we're trying to aim at again is a mechanism to help students learn whatever it is that they're attempting to learn, and to do so in an engaging way. And I think these tools are going to be available and adaptable for that purpose, regardless of whether we're talking law or algebra.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, we have kind of painted this very utopian, view of AI, right? It can support our students. There's a lot of great ways that we can send our students at the middle and then use AI to help make learning better or more efficient. There is still a lot of speculation around AI, and probably rightfully so. We don't necessarily know all of its capabilities. We know that it's going to be used for misuse, right? There's still reservations, and I think in higher ed, probably more so. It's like a great divide, right? There's half the team is go AI, and half the other team is get this out of here, no AI in the classroom at all. What would you say to those who are skeptical about the role that AI can play in education?
Yeah, I think part of the response there comes down to um, this is happening, and there are certainly legitimate concerns here. We have not seen this in full yet, and it continues to evolve very rapidly. We don't know where it's going. We can't even begin to predict that, perhaps. So yes, it is perfectly understandable that there's a lot of concern, a lot of questions out there, and what's the best way to handle it. But I think we cannot lose sight of the fact that this is happening. And so whether we want it or not is really irrelevant here, because it's happening. It is developing. And here's the thing, too, from a competitive standpoint, in what has become an increasingly competitive environment. If your school doesn't use it, I will guarantee somebody else, somewhere else, direct or indirect competitor, is going to figure this out. and you don't want to be the one that isn't doing something in this area. Just as the competitive reality is, that is not going to be a winning solution. So what I think needs to happen, if we think of it in those terms, then I think we can start thinking about it properly, which is, how can we use this to enhance our strategic competitiveness as an institution? And you don't have to come up, in my opinion, certainly not at the minute anyway, you don't have to come up with an all-encompassing answer that is world beating and cutting edge and will make you the next Harvard. That is not the goal in my mind. The goal is to achieve something that works for your institution, that allows you to take advantage of, I think, the positive opportunities that AI presents, and to do so in a way that makes sense for your institution's structure, the programs that you offer, the students that you serve. And the answer will look different from one institution to another, and that's fine. But I think we need to start taking steps toward positive use rather than trying to hold off the tidal wave that is approaching. That is not a winning strategy. So, my recommendation would be, try something. Start with small steps, single use, see how it works, get feedback from interested stakeholders as you proceed, as you would with pretty much any other program or strategic initiative, and see what happens, and just continue to develop it and keep an eye on developments in AI, obviously. Literally, this field is evolving so rapidly that, from month to month, there are different tools that are becoming available, or last month's tools are now being enhanced further. So it is a rapidly evolving landscape in the use of this. But again, that's just one more argument to start the process and see what you can do with it that makes sense for your institution and your students.
And I love that you put this as a strategy, because I think there's a lot of schools right now, their strategy is a policy, right? Their strategy is, okay, we've got the policy in place, we're fine now, we just have to reinforce the policy. I am a huge fan of Reddit. I talk about Reddit all the time, and I love to look in Reddit and see what students are saying, because I think that is where they're being really honest with their peers about what they're experiencing in higher ed. And there are a lot of students upset because we have taught them to love and rely on Grammarly, right, to improve their grammar. I use Grammarly all the time. We have taught them, I mean, literally in intro classes, we say, download Grammarly, use this. And now, because we're saying now it's too AI forward, we're saying, nope, you can't use Grammarly anymore. We're going to go back on our word. And if we find out you used Grammarly with your paper, you get a 0. And the students are mad. I mean, the students are mad, and they know that they have other options, which maybe in the past wasn't necessarily the case. If you loved your university or it was the only one close to you, that's where you had to go. But now you can literally open your computer and find 20 online colleges within the click of a few buttons. So I love that you call this a strategy and point to a policy, and then enforcement of the policy is not really a strategy that's going to lead to winning here.
That's right. And I think we get comfortable sometimes in academia with our present environment. And it comes, I think, largely from historical fact fact that universities didn't used to have to really think strategically because we seem to have an endless supply of students. And as you point out, we had our region pretty well sewed up. And so we knew that pretty much no matter what we did, we could count on students in our region to come to us. And that is not true any longer, if it ever really was. But I think that's kind of been the mindset very frequently in the past, that we just don't really have to focus on what the market is doing. But since an online education became prominent, that has started changing that equation. And we have seen, obviously, I don't know that there are too many universities left who do not have some form of online delivery. Um, Variation in perhaps how much and where it's used and what degree programs and so forth. But we've seen that change and that shift. But we need to keeping in mind that there are going to be universities or institutions of various kinds that are going to have different solutions to offer our students. And the students are not obligated to stay with us. And that's, an unfortunate reality. We tend to boil it down to retention statistics as if it's just a matter of what we do to retain the students, but it's, I think, more a function, those numbers really are very often a function of what other institutions are offering our students. And we need to keep that in mind as we plan our future as an institution.
Absolutely. And we're not even competing against institutions anymore. We're competing against social media. I mean, how easy is it to buy a class for $100 that promises to make you six figures in a week, right? And that in 1 week, you can make six figures, spend $100, and we're over here like, can you spend $80,000 and the next 4 years of your life, and then maybe you'll get a job in the field if you play your cards right? Like, our value proposition is not really great when you compare it to not only other institutions, but just what's available for the student at this present moment, not even considering 5 years from now. Like, what will be 5 years from now, right? If this is today, 2025, 2030, with AI. I mean, I don't know if you've thought about this, but I can't even imagine 5 years from now with AI.
I agree. I have no clue what AI is going to look like in 5 months, much less 5 years. And I don't say that flippantly, but again, going back to one of my previous comments, that we are literally seeing tools emerge on a month to month, sometimes weekly basis, or again, existing tools be upgraded or altered to do something else that we hadn't thought about. There is no telling what is going to happen. And that also means then too, in this environment, somebody's going to pick up on that, whatever that next iteration of AI is, and put it to use in their own programs. So we have to be watching that as educational institutions. We have to be able to respond to that, and if we're effective, actually implement those on the front end, so that we're leading the development rather than lagging the development. Because, as you point out correctly, there's a lot of other options for course-specific training. I think employers are starting to wake up to that fact, and there simply is no rule that says everyone must have a 4-year degree from this type of institution to be successful. Um, I think employers are starting to wake up to that. So there's going to be an emerging market, more and more of a market for, as you suggested, short-term course offerings. Think of this as basically retraining or upsizing one's skill set, recredentialing, whatever the case may be. So we're not going to get as many students coming back for formal degree programs on an ongoing basis. And this is what's been driving the certificate movement for many years. But I think we're going to see more need than for universities to respond with micro credentials. And we are seeing that development clearly. But I think that's going to be where universities, institutions of higher education need to be focusing. That's how they can become very nimble and market specific and strategic in delivering what students need and what employers then need as well.
Absolutely. And I mean, I think it's virtually impossible. Like you think of a business program right now, it's pretty impossible to keep a business course or an entire program up to date with how fast things are changing. But with AI, we probably could. We could have AI continuously looking at job boards for us, keeping a pulse on there's a new tech tool, there's a new skill that employers are, we need to, you know what I mean? Like we can use AI to help us keep our programs that we are proud of, that we think are really good. We can still use AI to make improvements based on the conditions around us.
Yes, I agree. And I think that's a very good example of the way that institutions can use AI for their own internal purposes, not even as a student facing or community facing function, but rather to use that to continue to survey the environment, look at what other institutions are doing, and then set up a response to that. How can we, as an institution, given our structure, our programs, we have this nugget of information that we have just discovered using AI, that the market seems to be evolving in a particular direction. Um, that happens to fit very nicely with one of our program areas that we have a certain amount of strength in anyway. There's your opening. There's your market space to go develop and to do so, hopefully, maybe at least before competing schools catch on to that trend.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now we're getting kind of to the end here. So I have one final question for you, and it's what should institutions be thinking about now, today, present moment, if they want to be ready for the kind of AI integration that you really have painted a picture of? What should they be thinking about now?
Number one, I think we have to do this clearly with students in mind. So, I think we have to kind of set that up as the first step. What do our students need? How can we deliver that? And how is AI going to help us deliver that? And then take a very realistic and very hard and objective assessment of where we are today as an educational institution, even putting AI aside for the moment. But where are we good? Where are we not good? How do we fit the market as we see it? And use that information then to start really refocusing our entire program effort. That becomes then, I think, the foundation for where we can start feeding AI into the structure of the institution in a way that, again, becomes strategic. So I see this as again, really a part of a solid and well done strategic initiative. We cannot lose sight of that. It has to be done strategically for us to be successful and to make meaningful use of the technology. So I think that just basic foundational assessment of where we are as an institution, what we can do, what we can't do, has to be really the initial focus, so that as we start thinking about where AI can integrate, we can then do so from a position of understanding what we're trying to achieve and where AI really does fit for us as an institution.
Absolutely. I love that you talk about strategy because I feel like in higher ed, we love shiny new objects. I've seen it time and time again, right? You get a sales guy on the phone, he has some new SaaS product, and he presents a problem that you probably don't even have, but he has a shiny new tool for you. And so you're like, yeah, we need this. Cause then he lists off all the other schools that are using it. And you're like, if all the other schools are using it, I want to use it. Right. And so then we adapt this tech tool and maybe we didn't actually really need it. We just kind of got sold on it. So as an industry, I think we love shiny new objects. AI is very much a shiny new object, and there are going to be so many tools. I mean, I think we're just at the tipping point with the amount of tools that are coming out that use AI. And so I think your proposition of keep the students at the center, figure out what they need, really gives us good like guardrails, right? To make sure that the technology that we adapt is serving our students, is serving our faculty, is serving our staff really well versus competing against them, making it harder for them, right? Like AI should never be making it harder for us. It should be making it better for us, not more challenging. And I think that
Yeah,
strategy piece is something that we're going to really have to rely on experts to help us kind of get through this transition phase within our campuses of AI is here to stay. How do we make this make sense for us? So
yeah,
yeah,
and that is, I think, critical uh, in addressing the shiny new object issue that you raise, because if we don't think strategically, then we are going to just either be buying everything that does appear at our doorstep, or we're going to be saying no to many or all of the offerings that are out there because we simply are being overwhelmed with information and choices and alternatives, and it becomes information, a function of information overload at that point. So we simply shut down the effort altogether. So we need to proceed strategically so that we know what is simply nothing more than a shiny new object, and what can really help us. What can help us help our students and deliver a finished product for their employers. That's where we need to be focusing. AI is a tool. It's not a be all end all objective in its own right. So we need to be, I think, selective and strategic in how we use it and in which specific tools we use.
absolutely. This has been so much fun. I really value this conversation. It's a touchy subject right now. I think there's a lot of people trying to make sense of it. What side am I on? How do I use this? Is this the enemy? Are we, is it going to take over the world? Like there's so many questions. Um and I have very carefully sidestepped AI because nothing has felt like it all felt like a distraction. And I think you've outlined some really good ways we can use this and just ideas of how to approach AI use. So I really do thank you for being with us, sharing these little nuggets of wisdom. If someone wanted to connect with you, how could they find you?
Yep, I am on LinkedIn, so you can always feel free to shoot me a message there. My email, otherwise, you can reach me at bill@atlantis-holdings.net if you want to just send an email to me. And I'll be happy to chat or talk and offer any other thoughts or advice that I can, and look forward to talking with folks.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Appreciate the chance to chat. Enjoyed talking with you, and hope you have continued success.
Thank you. And thank you all to our listeners. We will see you next time on EdUp Curriculum.